smart, talented, capable. Your colleagues respect you. Your clients trust you. Your business is growing, but behind the scenes, you're drowning. Client emails sit unanswered for 2 weeks. Invoice follow-ups never happen. That proposal you promised still not started. You miss deadlines not because you can't do the work, but because you can't start the work. Things fall through the cracks. Important tasks slip away, and you're constantly firefighting instead of building. And everyone keeps telling you the same thing. You just need better time management. Get organized. Use a planner. Just prioritize better. And you scream to them. And you write that. I'm Eduard. I'm an engineer who's worked at some of the world's top tech companies. I also run my own business. I have ADHD. I have had it my entire life. And for over a decade, I've been building the systems that let me function as both an entrepreneur and an employee without everything falling apart. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why traditional productivity advice fails for ADHD brains. And more importantly, I'm going to show you the clear, concise, effective system that actually works. Not motivation hacks, not willpower advice. Brain-based business systems, professional protocols designed for dopamine-deficient brains. Let's get into it. Before we dive into the neuroscience, you need to know who I am and why I built this. Because if you're going to trust someone's business system advice, you need to know they've actually operated in the real world. I grew up in Romania. Even as a young kid, I knew something was different about me. I couldn't sit still in class. I forgot homework constantly. Even when I cared deeply about it, I would spend hours staring at books without processing a single word. But I was good at logic, at systems thinking, at problem solving, so I gravitated towards cybernetics and computer science for my bachelor's degree in Romania. Logic problems, algorithms, computer systems, my brain lit up for those. Reading assignments, writing essays, anything with executive function demands, I would procrastinate until 2 a.m., then panic finish everything in a caffeine-fueled sprint. After my bachelor's, I moved to the UK for a master's in software engineering. New country, new professional expectations, same ADHD brain. I made it though. Got into engineering, started working at tech companies, small companies first, where I learned to build products from scratch. Then leadership roles, where I had to manage teams and deliverables. Then back to engineering at some of the biggest tech companies in the world. Architecture roles, technical leadership. From the outside, it looked like a success. From the inside, I was compensating hard. In meetings, I was the guy with obsessive notes, not because I was diligent, but because I couldn't trust my memory. I set alarms for everything, not just meetings, but follow up with clients, submit timesheet, send that document you promised. I built elaborate systems just to track what I would promise to home. And I was terrified of dropping balls, missing a client deadline, forgetting a teammate's request, losing track of an important email. It wasn't about being professional, it was about survival. Then I started my own business, and suddenly there was no manager to catch my mistakes, no team to pick up my slack. If I forgot to invoice a client, I didn't get paid. If I missed a follow-up, I lost the sale. If I couldn't reply to emails, my business died. The stakes were different now, and I realized I can't just cope anymore. I need systems, clear ones, concise ones, effective ones, systems that keep me organized, that help me to keep up, that make sure nothing falls through the cracks. Not because I want to optimize, because I need to function. For years, medication helped, not perfectly, but enough. Then one day, it stopped. Not because I built tolerance, not because the dosage was wrong. My brain just adapted, found workarounds. The medication lost effectiveness, and suddenly I was back to square one. Now, stakes were different. As an employee, I was missing internal deadlines, forgetting to follow up on critical tasks. My managers were covering for me without me even realizing. As an entrepreneur, I was losing clients because I couldn't reply to emails for 2 weeks, missing invoicing windows, dropping leads because I forgot to follow up. A client would say, "Send me the proposal," and 3 weeks later, they would hire someone else. Colleague would ask, "Did you finish that analysis?" and I would realize I've completely forgotten it existed. I would promise a deliverable by Friday, and Monday would arrive with nothing done because I couldn't start on Thursday. The shame was unbearable. I was a software engineer at a top-tier company, running my own business, someone people look to for complex problem solving, and I couldn't do things that neurotypical professionals handle without thinking. Client communication, invoice tracking, project follow-ups, basic professional adulting. That was my breaking point. I realized I can't keep compensating forever. My brain will adapt again. It always does. And if I can't function professionally, if I can't keep clients, meet deadlines, stay organized, I lose everything. My career, my business, my credibility. I need to understand the system, the mechanics, the neuroscience. If I'm going to survive as an entrepreneur, as an employee, I need to engineer a solution. So I did what engineers do. I researched neuroscience papers, ADHD studies, dopamine regulation, executive function, reward prediction errors, not because I wanted to become an expert, because I had no other choice. And slowly, I started to understand what was actually happening in my brain. And more importantly, how to build a system that worked with it. Here's what I learned, and this is going to change everything for you. When a neurotypical professional sees a task, their brain does something automatic. It releases dopamine before they start. That dopamine creates motivation. It makes them feel like doing the task. They respond to the client, dopamine spike, they feel motivated, and then they do it. Easy. Your brain, completely different story. You see the task and your brain releases almost no dopamine. No dopamine means no fuel, means no motivation. You're trying to start a car with empty gas tank. And here's where it gets worse for professionals like us. Client sends requests, you see it, no dopamine before you tell yourself, I will do that later. Days pass, guilt builds, task gets harder because now there's shame attached. You finally force yourself through willpower. Brain gets minimal reward. Brain learns this client interaction doesn't produce dopamine. Next client email is even harder to start. This is why that proposal you needed to send 3 weeks ago is actually harder to send now than it was in day one. Your brain has learned it's not even worth the effort. And here's the devastating part for entrepreneurs and employees. Your professional reputation is built on consistency. Responding promptly, following up reliably, delivering on time. But your brain makes consistency nearly impossible. Because every time you force yourself to do a low dopamine task, it gets harder next time. But you can work in crisis mode, right? Of course you can. The night before the big presentation, suddenly productive. 2 hours before the client call, proposal done. Deadline in 30 minutes. Invoice sent. Because crisis creates emergencies. When it's 11 p.m. and the client meeting is at 9 a.m., your brain releases stress hormones that trigger dopamine. Suddenly, you have fuel. The proposal you couldn't start for 3 weeks, done in 2 hours. But here's what's happening. Your brain learns this pattern. It learns crisis equals dopamine and I can finally work. So, unconsciously, you start waiting for crisis mode. You procrastinate until panic sets in because panic is the only state where your brain has enough fuel to start. And as a professional, as an entrepreneur or employee, this pattern is destroying you. Clients lose trust because you're always last minute. Colleagues think you are unreliable because everything is on fire. You're burned out from living in constant emergency mode. And you're leaving money on the table because you can't follow up on leads that are warm. This isn't a character problem. It's not poor time management. It's chemistry problem. And once you understand that, you can stop trying to fix your professionalism and start building systems that work with your brain. For over a decade, I've been documenting how my brain behaves in professional context, not in clinical way, in a survival way. What works when I'm managing engineering projects, what doesn't, what helps me stay on top of client communication, what makes me drop balls. I tested everything. Pomodoro technique failed. Timer stress made it worse. Rigid morning routines, missed one day, spiral of shame, lost a week. Complex project management systems, failed maintenance because another avoided task. Eat the frog advice. My brain just avoided the pond entirely for 3 weeks. Traditional productivity systems assume you can't just begin, but for ADHD professionals, starting is the entire battle. The breakthrough came when I stopped trying to fix my professionalism and I started building systems that work with my dopamine-deficient brain, not around it, not in spite of it. I started asking different questions. How can I respond to clients without waiting for panic modes? How can I track deliverables without complex systems I will abandon? How can I follow up on leads without relying on memory I don't have? How can I build professional habits that don't collapse when I fail once? And slowly, I built a system, a business operating for ADHD brains, clear, concise, and effective. Systems that help me stay organized as an entrepreneur. Systems that help me keep up as an employee. Systems that make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. No client emails, no invoices, no project deadlines. I still struggle. I always will. There are still days where I can't start, where the shame spiral hits, where I fall off the track, but I'm not living in constant crisis mode anymore. I'm not losing clients because I forgot to follow up. I'm not missing deadlines because I couldn't begin until the last minute. I'm not terrified every morning that I've dropped an important ball. I have systems, protocols, frameworks that work. I don't have to hate myself to function professionally anymore. These are the systems I wish I would have when I started my career. When I was managing my first team, when I launched my business, and they're the systems I'm going to share with you today. Everything I learned over a decade, everything strategy that worked in professional context, every protocol that helped me function as both entrepreneur and employee, every system that kept things from falling through the cracks, I put into one comprehensive guide, the Executive Function Survival Guide. This isn't productivity planner, it's not a habit tracker. It's a brain-based operating system designed specifically for professionals with ADHD who struggle with ADHD task initiation and business follow-through. This is over 200 pages of brain-based professional systems, not theory, not motivation, clear, concise, effective protocols that work with your ADHD brain in business contexts. The fundamental systems that keep entrepreneurs organized, employees on track, and make sure nothing falls through the cracks. Because I know how ADHD professionals work, you don't just need a general system, you need a solution for specific business problems. And I'm also including 7 different bonus guides: the email paralysis protocol, the appointment booking cheat sheet, the administrative task protocol, the time blindness survival kit, the client communication recovery templates, the RSD rejection sensitivity first aid kit, the decision paralysis framework. If this resonates with you and you are an employee or an entrepreneur with ADHD who feels stuck, this guide might help you. You'll find practical insights to help you move forward. More information is in the video description. Thank you for watching.